I'm already standing on the porch at 5 in the morning, both hands wrapped around black coffee, watching dawn crawl over 340 acres of almond trees I've worked for 40 years. My name is Arthur Calloway. I'm 64. My father signed this land to me in 1983, his hand shaking as he said, "This ground remembers everything." I understood that better than ever after the 8 months that nearly cost me everything. Carol, my wife, has been gone 3 years, 2 months, 11 days. Pancreatic cancer, fast and merciless. She used to sit under the oldest tree on the property with her paperback and sweet tea, telling me to go find something to fix. I still miss her every morning. That morning, my son Michael pulled up in his clean truck, khakis pressed, coffee from town in hand. He was my boy, and whatever else was true, I loved him without question. His wife Sandra had sent cornbread, warm and thoughtful, the kind of gesture that had filled in the quiet corners since Carol died. I trusted them both completely. Then Michael set a leather document bag on the table. Inside was a stack of papers he called just a safety net. Language about financial management, a designated representative, protection, in case something happened to me. He never said the word conservatorship. I read slowly, the way my father taught me, and on page 4 found a clause granting him authority over asset transfer, my land. Michael insisted it was standard, that Sandra had reviewed it, that he only wanted to take care of me. My phone rang before I could sign, my broker, Dale, with a question that could have waited. I set the pen down. Michael packed up the papers, all patience, no pressure. But something in his eyes had gone cold and flat for just a second before the warmth came back. After he left, I sat with the ledger and let myself actually think. 8 months of things that felt like bad luck. An irrigation valve seized in February, not worn, forced. A 4-year-old harvester's drive belt snapping days before harvest. 2 buyers canceling contracts with vague excuses. Each time, Michael appeared right after, saying some version of, "You can't keep doing this alone." I had started to believe him. Then Diana Reyes, my accountant of 14 years, came to my office with a laptop and a face I'd never seen her wear. 23 withdrawals over 18 months, cleared with Michael's secondary authorization, totaling $87,000, small enough each time to avoid triggering alarms. She told me she'd tried to warn me back in April, with a handwritten letter dropped in my mailbox. I never received it. 2 days later, I stopped to help a stranger, Henry Briggs, load a cast-iron table saw onto his truck, while Michael stayed inside on his phone. Over coffee, Henry's expression shifted. He told me that days earlier, while filming a piece of equipment out of habit, his practice before any purchase, 2 men had appeared nearby, not knowing he was there. One had said, "Once the old man signs the management transfer, the whole thing moves to us. Craig has the buyer lined up." The other asked what happens if the owner refuses. The answer? He won't refuse. We've been making sure of that for months. He thinks he can't handle it anymore. Henry recognized the voice the moment Michael stepped out of that truck. He showed me the video. I listened to my son calmly explain how he planned to take everything I'd built. I asked Henry to hold on to it and tell no one yet. That night I searched my own files and found a power of attorney I'd never signed. My name on it, but the curl of the A too tight, the tail of the Y wrong. Beneath it, a draft transferring the farm's assets to an LLC registered 3 months earlier, owned by Michael and Sandra. I called my attorney, Warren Hodge. He was blunt. Forgery under California Penal Code 470. Elder financial abuse under Welfare and Institutions Code 15610.30. Both felonies, and the LLC draft evidence of premeditated intent. He told me to bring everything in and not confront Michael. Diana met me at Rudy's diner, terrified, portfolio pressed to her chest. She told me Michael had come to her 11 months earlier, quietly implying that if she raised questions about the account, questions would be raised about her instead. She'd been too afraid to speak, but she'd kept records, bank confirmations, authorization logs, a USB drive she'd carried home in her jacket every night for months, refusing to let the truth disappear, even if she couldn't act on it yet. At Warren's office, we built the case. A forensic document examiner confirmed the signature was a deliberate imitation, not my hand. Henry agreed to testify, despite a bad experience decades earlier watching a neighbor lose everything in a similar fight. "I'm not asking you to save the farm," I told him. "I'm asking you to tell the truth." He straightened and said, "Tell me what you need." Then Warren's phone rang. Michael had filed a conservatorship petition that morning. We had 18 days until the hearing. Warren dug into Craig Whitfield, the broker Michael had lined up, a man with a history of complaints skating just inside the law. A letter outlining the evidence was hand-delivered to Craig's office. 2 days later, he signed a proffer agreement, giving up dates, communications, everything, including the fact that Sandra hadn't just gone along with the scheme. She'd designed it. She'd approached Craig first, negotiated his commission, drafted the transfer strategy. Michael was the face. Sandra was the architect. She'd already retained her own lawyer and struck a deal before Michael even knew she'd moved. Full cooperation in exchange for a plea. She gave him up completely. That night alone, I let myself remember something I'd been avoiding. A dinner, 3 weeks before I met Henry, when Michael and Sandra had come with a simplified version of the same papers. Sandra's hand had been warm over mine as I picked up the pen and started to sign. My phone rang. Dale again, with nothing urgent, just talking for 12 minutes while my hand shook loose from that signature line. I hadn't understood then how close I'd come. I understood now. 11 days later, Michael showed up at my door at 11 at night, hollow-eyed, asking if I still thought of him as my son. I told him yes. That didn't change because of what he'd done. He broke down at my kitchen table, admitted he'd told himself it was for both of us, that he just wanted it to be easy, and convinced himself that wanting it easy made it right. I told him to go home. There was nothing left to say that would undo anything. I sat that night under the old tree where Carol used to read, talked to her the way you talk to someone who still has a place set at your table, and told her the farm was still standing, and I intended to keep it that way. The morning of the hearing, I put on the suit I'd worn to bury Carol and walked the property first, hand on the bark of that same old tree, the way my father and his father had before me. Henry was waiting in the courthouse parking lot with his thermos, pouring 2 cups without asking. "You ready?" he said. "I don't know," I told him, "but I'm going in." Inside, I saw Michael down the corridor in his dark suit, composed until our eyes met. And for just a second, he looked like the boy who used to knock on my door during thunderstorms. Then he turned back to his lawyer. Warren laid it out for Judge Odom with total precision. The 23 withdrawals, the forged signature confirmed by forensic analysis, the LLC draft as evidence of premeditation, Craig Whitfield's sworn cooperation, and finally, the electronic messages between Michael and Sandra, one line landing harder than anything else in that room. He almost signed tonight. Next time, don't let the phone interrupt. Henry testified, steady under an aggressive cross-examination, certain of the voice he'd heard twice. Michael stood at one point, insisting everyone testifying against him had a deal to protect themselves. The judge cut him off and told him to sit down and speak through counsel. When our eyes met across that courtroom, I saw exhaustion under his composure. Not from the hearing, but from the weight of everything he'd built and what it had cost to carry it that far. I looked away, not in anger. I'd seen what I needed to see. The judge returned after 22 minutes. The petition was denied in its entirety. She issued a restraining order barring Michael from touching any farm asset, and the district attorney announced formal charges of elder financial abuse and forgery. Michael was told to remain available to the court. He didn't look at me on his way out. In the truck afterward, everything I'd been holding for 18 days, for 3 years, if I was honest, broke loose at once. I wasn't crying because I'd lost. I hadn't lost anything. I was crying because I'd spent 64 years believing the people who say they love you are the safest people to trust, and I'd learned that love left unexamined can become the most dangerous thing you carry. Henry just put his hand on my shoulder and let me sit with it. 3 months later, in February, the almond trees bloomed the way they always do, white and pink against bare branches, the valley's secret beauty arriving in the coldest month. Michael's plea deal was moving toward 2 years in prison, 3 years of supervised release, and full restitution. Sandra had surrendered her CPA license and left Fresno for good. Diana was now my chief financial officer, walking me through the books with steady hands. Henry came by twice a week to help around the workshop, the way he'd said he would, plain and unhurried as ever. That Saturday morning, I planted a young almond tree beside the old one, the one Carol used to sit beneath. Henry knelt down without being asked and helped me pack the soil around the roots. She would have said it's crooked, I told him. It's not crooked, he said. I know, I said. She'd have said it anyway, then fixed it herself. I am Arthur Calloway. I'm 64 years old. This land was here before me, and if I do my part, it'll be here long after I'm gone. I almost lost it all, not because someone overpowered me, but because I loved too blindly and questioned too little. A stranger showed up on a county road at exactly the right moment, and I stopped to help him. He ended up saving me. I don't call that coincidence. I call it grace. The most dangerous person in your life is rarely a stranger. It's someone who knows exactly how much you trust them and decides to use it.